Welcome to Around Kitsap. This is our show for the county where we go in depth on one subject. Today I'm with our county coroner and we're in his brand new building, and you're going to see that throughout this show. I'd like to welcome our Kitsap County coroner, Greg Sandstrom. Welcome,
Thank you.
Greg.
Thank you.
This is an absolutely beautiful building, brand new, just opened for public viewing. However, this is not open to the public on a regular basis, is it, Greg?
No, it's not. This is open for families of bereaved people, plus my deputies, my pathologists. So it's really kind of a private place, but yet, as far as grieving families, they're certainly welcome to come here, and we deal with them on almost a daily basis. Depends on who we have or what person we have here.
First of all, let's get a little background on what is the role of the county coroner. What exactly is your job?
My job is to investigate deaths, suspicious, traumatic deaths, deaths that where a person not under the care of a doctor, or not in a hospital, or in a nursing home for that matter, who has come under a sudden, unexpected death. And then our job is to find out why that person died.
Why is it an elected position, Greg?
Well, this is state law that goes way back. This is not only an elected position, but it's also a partisan position, which is kind of interesting because
Right.
I really have no political pull one way or the other, and I don't think it really matters if you're a Democrat, Republican, a liberal, libertarian, or whatever it might be.
Right.
Really, what really matters is your background, and investigation, and dealing with families. That's what really matters.
So it's state law that the coroner is an elected position?
Yes, it is.
Very interesting. Why doesn't the coroner perform the autopsies?
Well, the coroner doesn't necessarily is a doctor. My job is an investigator. I have investigators that work under me, and we go to training every year to learn new techniques of investigation. We deal with law enforcement when we go to the scene. Law enforcement's in charge of the scene, and we're in charge of the body. And together, that's how we come to a conclusion of why the person died. So our investigation is at the scene, speaking to doctors, a background. We speak to families. We get all the information about that person. We present that to the pathologist who does our autopsies. And with the information from law enforcement on our side, the pathologist can come with a proper conclusion.
Wow, very interesting. You did mention that you almost have a role in law enforcement. You work closely with law enforcement. Tell us a little bit about your background, Greg.
My background is with the Washington State Patrol for 13 years. I was a trooper. Most of my time was spent in Mason County area. However, I grew up here in Kitsap County. And after I left the patrol in 1985, I went to overseas missions, what we call Youth of the Mission, or YWAM, and came back and was a chaplain with the South Kitsap Fire Department. So it gave me a background not only in investigations, but also in dealing with families, bereaved families. I did many funerals for people I didn't even know, but I got to know them, and that was a big help for a background such as this. And then in 1994, a position came open for a deputy coroner in Kitsap County. I decided to go ahead and apply for that, and it seemed like a natural fit with those two elements of my background.
Interesting. And you work with the sheriff and probably local police departments on a daily basis.
That's correct.
As you deal with traumatic deaths, natural deaths. Tell everybody about your relationship with the sheriff that you are the only one who can arrest the sheriff. That was, I thought, very interesting.
Well, Steve Boyer and I go way back. We were actually in the same academy class in the Washington State Patrol in 1974. So we've known each other for many, many years. And of course, we kid each other when we get into a room, and we'll make comments about, I'm the only person that can arrest him. And that's by state law, that because he is the top law enforcement person in the county, that no one else can arrest him. So the state had to make some means of being able to arrest the sheriff if he does something tremendously wrong. So they gave that job to the coroner.
Interesting. Very interesting. So let's talk a little bit about staff. How many folks do you have working here, and what is their roles?
Okay. Well, I have a chief deputy, and his main job is supervision, but he also goes out and takes calls and does investigations, as well as myself. I have 4 full-time deputies who their main job is investigating deaths, and as well as, along with that, they also talk to doctors. They also have to make notification next to kin, which means knocking on people's doors and letting them know their loved one has died. They do that in person. Then I have a half-time deputy, and then a extra help deputy in order to cover all the shifts.
We are in a building that is brand new, beautiful. However, it is not open to the public. When Mike, our camera person, and I showed up today, we had to ring the bell. But it is open, or you do meet with families here.
We do.
And there's a nice conference room for that, and I'm sure there's a lot of counseling and coping and helping skills that you use in talking to families.
Well, the one main thing that we do here is we try to, actually we succeed in doing, is letting them know exactly why their loved one died. And that's really important, particularly when you get into young people's deaths, and particularly into baby deaths, because those are very tough. We handle those just as methodically as we do with a homicide. We go all out and try to answer questions of why their baby died. And as you know, many times we can't answer those questions, and elimination of everything else, it would be called a SIDS death, or sudden unexpected deaths in infants. And this is a very difficult for families to handle, because there's really no reason for it. But many times it's a genetic thing. So therefore, if it's something that can be prevented in one of their other children's lives, then maybe we can help them out there. And the other thing we do, of course, is make sure they get all their loved ones' possessions, such as rings and jewelry and money, anything that might have been on their loved ones at the time of death.
Let's talk a little bit about your old facility. It
Okay.
was located in Port Orchard on Sydney.
Yes, it was.
Not far from the courthouse. Old home. Was it
Very
an
old
old
home.
house you were in?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about it.
It was a very old home. I'm not sure when it was built. It was early 1900s. And,
Oh, that is old.
Yeah, it is. It is very old. It was actually, when I first became a deputy coroner in '94, the upstairs was our administrative area, and the downstairs is our morgue. The morgue was made up of an autopsy table and a walk-in cooler that was actually donated from the U.S. Navy many years ago. So you can imagine how old it must be. And we would put the bodies in the walk-in cooler and then take them out and do the autopsy there. The one real bad part, besides many other things, but one of the main things that we did not like about the building, of course, is its size, and the fact that it was a very old home, was the fact that when we took bodies out of the back of the van, you were out in the open, exposed to anybody walking by. So they would see us remove the bodies, so there's no privacy.
Right.
And that was very difficult for us. The upstairs was eventually, we were told to vacate from the fire department because it was not supposed to be inhabited because of the size and the structure of the building. We actually had to move our administrative office up the road a couple of blocks, but we kept the morgue in the basement of that home. So the upstairs was just for supplies.
When did the county start making plans for a new facility for you?
Well, I've been working on that for 10 years now, and trying to get funding. There's a couple of trips back to Washington, D.C. seeing about getting federal fundings. I've talked to the state about getting funding. None of those really panned out as I was hoping they would. So it finally came to the point where about two and a half years ago that we found money was available through REIT funds, which is real estate excise tax.
Great.
And because of the house sales were good at that time, we had the tax money to spend. We figured that was the right time to go ahead and build.
Excellent. Excellent. For everyone's information, we're at 5010 Linden Street,
Correct.
which is in the Pendergast Park area. We are right next door to the 911, is it the Readiness Center?
The whole complex here is called the Readiness Center. That's all CENTCOM next door. They're part of the Readiness Center.
Emergency management.
Correct. Emergency management is in that building also. And then the fire department has a big role up here.
Training center.
They have a big training tower here and vehicles out there they can set fire and do all the training.
Right, right. So this has become quite the complex here.
It has.
Lots of not only county employees, but state employees and the different municipalities that use the training center.
Correct.
Very good location, very easy to find right off Union in West Bremerton. So tell us about this facility. What amenities do you have here?
Well, the amenities we have here is we have a lot of room in our coolers. For one thing, even with stacking the bodies on we have trays, and our old one we could fit up to 10 bodies in there. Here we have one large cooler that we can put 15 bodies on on tables without stacking, and then another cooler which we can actually turn to freezing within minutes. We can put 5 bodies in there. And the reason we have the 2 separate areas is because the freezer can be for either decomped bodies or for diseased bodies. And then notice you'll see later we'll be going into, there's 2 separate autopsy rooms. There's one that has 2 tables and room for a third, which is our main autopsy area. And then we have an isolation autopsy area. And that would be for the diseased bodies and those that are decomposing. And for future, we have another room off of that isolation autopsy room that will be for x-rays. Right now we do all our x-rays at Harrison Hospital, but we hope someday to have a grant to put an x-ray machine in that building, or in this building. And then the other thing is that, as I mentioned before, we'd have to take the bodies out of the van, completely exposed to the weather and anybody walking by. Here we have a garage that we back into, we close the door, take the body out, take it right into a receiving room where we can weigh the body and take them either at the isolation cooler or the regular cooler.
You have nice office space. We're sitting in your office, very nice space.
Thank you.
Your deputy, I see, has an office. And then there's some cubicle space for deputy coroners. Good. Plus you have a little room for growth there, you said.
We do. We have 6 stations out there right now, and we have room for 2 more. As I say, we have room for growth in our autopsy area. There's 3 tables now. We have room for a 4th. So there's plenty of room for growth.
And then, of course, the conference room to meet with families, which is very nice and very amenable, and close the door, have some quiet time in there.
That's a real another plus we have over the old building. There's really no place to meet separately with the families. Here we have a separate place we can go, and we even have a TV in there that will have a monitor on their loved ones if they want to see them, which we did not have at the other place. There was no opportunity to see the loved one when they were here.
Greg, how long would a body stay here? Give us an idea of how long a body would be in this facility.
Basically, between 2 and sometimes up to 5 days, but not normally. Normally it's about 2 to 3 days before the family chooses a funeral home, and then the funeral home comes and takes the body away.
Tell us one more time, who comes to this building? What deaths come into the coroner's building?
It'd be any traumatic deaths, which is obviously traffic accidents, falls, homicides, suicides, any trauma whatsoever. And then there's also those that die unexpectedly. Let's say the person's out mowing their lawn in their 40s and dies suspiciously of a heart attack, but you don't know that, so you have to go investigate. The doctor may say he did not have hypertension or anything that would have caused his death, and therefore we have to look into that. Make sure there wasn't any bee stings, maybe he was allergic to bees. If there was a stroke, maybe there's something hereditary in their family and in their genetics to where they didn't know about. So those kind of things are the ones we investigate.
Very important work in our county, and maybe we've had some interactions with the coroner, maybe we haven't, and the folks that work in this building are extremely dedicated to this work. Tell us the description of who you look for. You told me that off camera when you're hiring somebody. What is it you look for?
As a deputy coroner, we're looking for somebody who, first of all, isn't bothered by death, to where it's going to give them nightmares or problems thinking about it later, because it doesn't do them or us any good. Has to be a good investigator, somebody who has an investigative background, and that's the kind of people we look for. And they have to be completely honest. We have many pills that we pick up, medications that we pick up from the homes, as well as jewelry, money, and sometimes it gets into hundreds and thousands of dollars. So we have to account for every pill and every penny, and we make sure that gets back to families. And then the fourth thing is they have to have a good sense of humor, because we kind of debrief each other through sense of humor. Not the sense of families, but we do have a good sense of humor here, and we're able to joke around, and it does help. And we kind of look out for each other.
Yeah, very good. We're going to take a look around and show everybody this building. It's a very nice facility,
Thank
and
you.
I know it helps to have a new facility to work in. It's probably great for your staff
It is wonderful, my staff.
and for yourself as well. Congratulations on this building, and
Thank you.
I want to thank you for your time, Greg, and thanks for the work you do for all of us in Kitsap County. Appreciate it very much.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Thanks for staying with us today, and we'll see you next time on Around Kitsap.
I know.